Yeah, there it started recording. It always takes a moment. So thanks for coming out this evening. I'll keep admitting folks as they pop in to join. But thank you to those that have joined so far. This is our second meeting on the Creekside reopening plan. And so I hope I don't repeat myself too much, but jump in with questions. So that I can, particularly if you just came on here to get a question or two answered and you don't need to hear the whole spiel. I'm not going to be offended if you log off early, but also I'm happy for you to stay. I will probably repeat some things from last night, though, because I want to go over every item in case folks didn't watch the video or just wanted to do the live meeting instead. So it's best generally to mute your microphone. And then if you have a question, you can always unmute and jump in and ask. You can also use the chat feature. It's on the top right on my screen anyway. And you can use that feature to ask questions. And then as I see those questions come in, I will try to respond to those. If I miss your question, please let me know that. Last night I missed one that was early on. And I'll try to remember what that question was. And I answered it for that parent by email. But anyway, if I miss one, please retype it in or just let me know that. If anybody else notices I've missed it, call it to my attention. I'd appreciate that. We do have several Creekside teachers joining us tonight. And then we also have Mrs. Limbach. Chloe is assistant principal at Creekside Elementary School. And we have Dr. Warland. Brooke is the assistant superintendent for Franklin Community Schools. So she joined us. And we may have more folks pop in and out of this meeting as we move along. So we are recording, just so everybody knows. We're recording the meeting so that way we can post it to our social media and YouTube account so anybody can watch this video when they have a spare moment. We'll go ahead and get started. And again, the purpose of this is to go over the reentry or the reopening plan, specifically for Creekside Elementary School here in Franklin Community Schools. But also, we'll touch on district types of reopening items as well, of course, because the district items, we do all of the district items here at Creekside, and then we have some things that are just very specific to our building, like pick up and drop off and things like that. So I'll go ahead and get started. And again, type in your chat on the right-hand side or just type and just ask a question. And either way is great. Chat is fine, or if you're calling in on the phone, of course, you'll just have to probably unmute your phone and just ask. So don't feel bad about that at all. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Going over the reentry plan, again, I don't want to read this all the way through. It is on franklinschools.org, the website. And yeah, Jennifer, that's the question that I missed last night. So thank you for asking that. And I did email a parent. So yeah, the question was, and I'll get to that early because I didn't mean to miss it. Are parents going to be able to walk to the class the first day of school? That's a good question. So I'll get to that real shortly here. So thank you for that. Thinking about reentry and how our building reopens safely this year, the first thing I should say is that this reentry plan for the district and for our school, though it would be really nice if we could guarantee or believe that we could keep COVID-19 entirely out of our school. That would be great, but we can't think that that's possible right now. So this plan is designed to reopen school as safely as possible, and it's designed to help reduce the spread of COVID-19, and it also helps us know what to do or how to react should we have cases of COVID-19. So that's the idea of this plan, is to reopen as safely as possible, but knowing that that it's impossible for us to try to even attempt to guarantee that we're not going to have cases in Franklin or Franklin Community Schools or in Johnson County. But we are very excited about opening on August 5th. It has been a long time. I said it yesterday also. This building was very sad when we were empty for all those months. And although our teachers did an excellent job for at-home learning, we really miss having everyone together. So we're excited for that. And so August 5th, I can't wait for it to be here. It's less than a month away, and it's going to be exciting to have all of our students and teachers and staff all back together. So we are very excited about that. I'll get started with beginning of the year items because that probably makes the most sense. And so a couple just real easy ones first, and that is knowing whose class your child is in. That will happen as it has in years past on the Friday before school starts. So that's July 31st. And at that point, the Power School app and also Power School Online will open up and you'll be able to see that information for this upcoming year's teacher. We did do parent requests back in May, and I think I was able to grant all of those. So if you made a request, you can assume right now that that was granted. I tried to call anybody or email who I couldn't, and I don't really think there were any. So, but then after that, our teachers worked very hard on making great classes for this upcoming year. So we're confident in that process. But July 31st is when you can find out your child's teacher. If you have any problems with the app or the website, you can just call us. And our secretaries, our office will look up your child's placement and just tell you. So, but we'd like you to have access to that online portal for all kinds of reasons, like your kids' grades, your students' re-registration in the summer, and information like that. So you'll find out on July 31st, and then on August 3rd, which is a Monday before school starts, we'll have our back to school night and meet the teacher night. And that will look different this year. You know, we can't have all those folks into our building, unfortunately. So we'll actually do that event outside all around the grounds here at Creekside Elementary School. So teachers will have tables with tents, and we'll do staggered arrival times so that we don't have everyone come right at one time. And you'll be able to meet your child's teacher, ask questions, fill out some paperwork, all of that. And we'll do that outside. And we'll make it as fun of an event as we can. And we'll try to also keep everybody safe. And doing it outside helps a lot. So that's our plan for August 3rd. And then August 5th, the first day of school, we will have, and this is where the question comes in about walking your child in that first day. We'll have really a very typical arrival as to how we have in the past, with the one exception of walking your child into school. We won't be able to allow that, but what we thought we would do is have some stations around the grounds at Creekside where if you want that photo op, you might be able to take it while being safe. And then we'll have staff around to walk your child then into the building. We just can't have that many adults coming in and out of the school like we normally like to do on the first day. Those of you that have been at Creekside for past kids or just in the past years know that we do ask for folks to either use the bus or drive your child to school on those first days, and either use the car rider lines if you drive to school or the school bus, and then say your goodbyes in the car, take your pictures at home, or take your pictures in the car if you're stopped safely. But we also allow, particularly we know for the parents of kindergartners, you love to be able to park and walk your child in on that first day. The only limitation we have is a limitation of parking. And it gets very full here in the morning. So we still are going to do the same thing where we ask parents that it's best if you can either use the car rider lines for drop off or the buses and say your goodbyes there and take your pictures. But if you really want to get that picture in front of Creekside on that first day, my thought right now is have some stations set up so you can take that picture with Creekside in the background, and it should be a neat moment that way. And then we'll have staff to be able to receive your child and make sure they make it to their classroom. So that's the one question I missed earlier, and I'm glad that that was asked again about walking your child into school on that first day. I will send out detailed information ahead of the first day with all of these things, so you don't have to be writing any of that down. I'll email with that. Thinking about start of school, things like that. Does anyone have any questions that pertain to that? They want to jump in and ask or chat before I move on into the other categories of things like our classrooms and schedules and items such as that. Okay. Mr. Sewell, our Director of Operations, would you like to speak about busing? I touched on busing just slightly and that's a great way to get to school, but can you talk to us about the busing changes for this year?
Yeah, I'd be glad to do that. So as we've asked Dr. Mormon to help us come up with a plan for what buses look like for this year. One of the things that we looked at was how do we minimize the amount of close contact we have on the buses. And really, there's no way to completely social distance on a bus. So we've got a couple of different measures that we are implementing along those lines. So our students are and our drivers are gonna wear masks while on the bus. And we are going to limit the bus capacity to 2 students per seat instead of 3. That's particularly at the younger grade levels. Three students in a seat is a common situation on our buses. So as you can imagine, taking a bus from around 80 some students down to 50 or 60 students, we have less capacity on our buses, and so we are doing the best we can to plan for that, but we will need more families to bring their students to school for us, or walk with their students to school, or help escort their students maybe on a bike ride, whatever that looks like for you and your family to get your students to school safely. It would really help us this year if it's possible for you to get your student to school. That would help us a great deal. So as students are on the bus, we're going to assign them seats to allow us to work with the health department should we have to do help with contact tracing. We're going to run the buses with the windows down as much as possible, or at least cracked, to help improve the air ventilation that's happening in the buses. And we will also be asking students to sanitize their hands as they get on and get off the buses. So obviously that is a little bit different environment than what kids are used to seeing on the bus, and we think as we make the best of circumstances, we think that'll be a good model that'll help position us to get to stay in school and be able to offer that in-person learning experience is our goal for the year. So
yeah, thank you, Jeff. Speaking of pick up and drop off, Jeff mentioned that we're going to ask for more parents to drive their students, and we're going to have to see how our bus capacity goes. It's always difficult for us. We know how many kids could on a given day ride a bus route, but of course we know that they never all do, and some kids never do, and other kids ride occasionally. So part of this will be us just seeing how the first days and weeks go, what our actual numbers are on the bus, and us adjusting on the fly. We are asking for parents, if you do wish to drive your child to school, as it always has been at Creekside and other Franklin schools, that is certainly fine. We already have a lot of folks that do that, and so I expect that we'll have at least that many this upcoming year that do that. We have 2 car rider lines here at Creekside. I will send out more detailed information on that just before the school year starts, but the front line is K and 1, and the back line is 2, 3, and 4 grades. And you don't have to ever go through both lines. You only go through one of them, and you pick which one if you have kids at 2 different grades. And regardless of which one you use, we will get your child to their correct classroom. Children will be driven to school. We have lots of staff out there to help. Those lines get better and better and safer as the year gets started because people get used to how they work. But we're very careful. We try to have curbside exits only out of the car. And when it gets dark, we have lighting in the parking lot and safety vests. And so we work hard for safety with those lines. We will start those lines earlier if we need to, if there's an issue with getting everybody through. Also, as always, and this is not a change, if our car rider lines cause a tardy, we don't count that tardy. So if you are in the line at 7:40 when that bell rings, your child will not be counted tardy. Now, if you're screaming down 44 trying to get into the line as the bell rings, in the past anyway, after the first so many days of school, your child probably would receive a tardy. This year, we will definitely give as much grace as we possibly can particularly as things settle in as the year gets started. And we also know there's changes. We have a roundabout, or we'll have a roundabout right down here near the intersection, which I think will help us. But that could cause problems right off the bat as folks are just learning how to use that. And of course, right now you can't even get through there. So they're hoping to have that done by the end of July. Car rider lines are very similar as into the past, and it's a safe way to have your child come to school. And then we're also still going to have that school busing option, and we'll work on that.
Dr. Hayden, I had one other thing that came to mind. We've talked about our one-stop guideline for this year. So in the past, we've had families who have different family situations that cause them to need their student to be picked up or dropped off from different locations throughout the school year. And just as we try to manage our social distancing and our buses under the constraints we have to work with, we are going to limit every family to one morning pickup location and one afternoon drop-off location. And if you need to deviate from that, you would need to take responsibility for getting your student to or from a different place than that. Of course, if there's a permanent life change where you need to change that and stick to a new pickup or drop-off location, we of course will entertain that and approve those requests. But we are going to be sticking to one-stop locations this year.
Yeah, thank you. And that's a little bit of a change. And we love to be able to serve the community and be flexible and do all these neat things where kids go on to different stops. But right now it's going to be too much, and particularly with assigned seats and contact tracing on the bus, it's just not something we can do.
Yeah. So students will also not be able to travel home with a friend for an overnight stay or for anything like that. So any of those kind of out of the normal one-off trips, families will need to take responsibility for on their own.
Yeah, and what you would do in that case is, let's say you have a student who's going to go home with your child. Maybe you're going to do the pickup. You would just have the parent of that student write a note saying that. You would send a note to the teacher saying that, and have them be car riders. So that's how you would handle that. If you needed them picked up just directly after school, of course you could always just handle the handoff from your house at 3:30 or 4 too. But that would be my advice as to how to still make something like that go.
Right. I mean, and that kind of brings another thing to mind, Dr. Hayden. If you have a group of people that you are comfortable spending time with, and you can arrange carpools to and from school, that would also be a way to help take some of the stress out of our busing situation and car rider situation, because it is a very busy time of morning and afternoon as cars are dropping off and buses are coming and going.
Yep. Yeah. And patience and safety is the key with that. And again, those lines, they get better and better throughout the year. Those car line veterans out there know that. And then occasionally, you'll hit mid-September and a grandparent will drop off for the first time ever, and it's confusing and people are stressed, and the person doesn't know to follow a certain line there. But we just have to be patient and give grace as much as we can, and then folks figure that line out, and our car duty folks help them know the rules and how to do it. And then things really do get much more efficient, and they stay safe. So let's see, talking about, this is probably a good time to talk about this. So when a student gets out of the car as a car rider, they'll need to put on their mask or have their mask on as they exit the car. And so that's where I'll talk about like face masks or face coverings now. I've got mine. I showed mine off yesterday. I actually have 3. So this is my second Cincinnati Reds face mask. Mrs. Dawson is smiling because she and I are Reds fans. And so I'm glad to see that. And so anybody that wears a Cincinnati Reds face covering, no, I'm kidding. There won't be any reward, but I'm choosing to try to, I don't personally enjoy wearing a face mask, but I'm not really doing it for me anyway. And so I'm just making it as fun as I can with the Reds. We're going to make it fun for the kids too, as best we can. I'm working with some vendors on getting some customized masks for staff and students, and they don't have to wear that particular one, but I want to give them one to start the year off just for fun. But wearing a face mask or a face covering is going to be important. It's a way that we can reduce the spread, and so that's what we're going to do. And so as students enter the building, because there'll be kids moving every which way, we've got to have those masks on. If kids ride the bus, they need to wear their mask or face covering. In the hallways, transitions, walking out to recess or walking to lunch, kids will wear face coverings. But then once they're outside at recess, and I haven't talked about recess yet, but once they're outside at recess, certainly they don't need to wear their mask. And at lunch, of course, they will not, because they'll be eating. And then there'll be other times in the day, particularly when they're in their classroom with their teacher, that it may be possible so they can have a break, so they're not wearing it all the time. I know this is an area of concern, and I certainly understand it. But this is something we need to do to try to be as safe as we can, and try to keep any kind of a COVID-19 spread from getting worse. And face masks is something we can do since we're inside together. A couple worries I've heard about it. Things like, my child has a hard time wearing a face mask, particularly young children, or maybe special needs children, things like people like that. Our teachers will work with kids on that, and work with families on that. So, a student's mask falls off, or the strap breaks, or whatever happens with it. Teachers are very used to working with our little kids, our 5-year-olds, and helping them. So we will do that. No child's going to be in trouble for their mask accidentally kind of coming down or falling off or whatever else. Just like we don't have kids get in trouble when their shoe comes untied. We just help them. So that'll be the way we approach. We will, of course, be kind and help our students understand why. At Creekside, we have a motto: "We are family." And I think that wearing a face covering dovetails into that nicely, because we're doing it for other people around us. I wear a face mask in case I happen to be an asymptomatic carrier and don't know it, of course. And I would hate it if I accidentally infected somebody, or heaven forbid, infected somebody who got very sick. So that's why we do this, and we'll talk about that with students. This is not going to be a secret that this pandemic is going on. Our kids have been living this for months and months, and so we'll talk about it and what it means, and why we wear face coverings, why we wash our hands. I mean, that we've always preached that at Creekside, because of influenza and the common cold and things like that. But you know what? We're going to talk about washing hands and how important it is, and we'll do it a lot. We'll talk about hand sanitizer and how that is very helpful as well. And we'll do that in and out of the room, to and from recess, to and from physical education class. That will be part of our routine, much like a nurse or a doctor does that as they enter a patient's room, in and out every single time. So mask wearing will be part of what we do until this whole crazy thing is over. We're just going to support our students and do that together. Some staff will have to wear a mask all the time. Someone like me, I don't think there'll be a time for me not to. Other people may not have to wear it every moment. It'll just depend a lot on our situation at school, in Franklin and Johnson County, and the best advice that we're given. If anybody has questions about that, feel free to chip in or type in the text. I know this is a lot of me talking, and so I normally don't like for that in a meeting. So please jump in there. Yeah, Travis asked about what kind of data do you need to see it go back to normal. Travis, it's probably the Johnson County Health Department that will give us the best information on that. They're the closest to us as far as they're the most, I guess, micro level, because they're at the county. Obviously, at the state level, we have the Indiana Department of Health, and at the federal level, the CDC and some other organizations like that. So I would imagine that we will go on the advice of probably particularly the Johnson County Health Department. Of course, they'll probably go on the advice of others too. So that nothing will make us happier to get to that level. There's no doubt about that. I can assure you that nobody's enjoying this new normal right now. But that's a good question. I appreciate that. Keep those questions coming. Type them in, or unmute your phone and just ask. Even if you start to interrupt me, I'll just stop talking so I can hear your question. So don't feel bad about that, because I know there's a delay sometimes when you try to ask a question. But I'll keep going, and then anybody just jump in there. Oh, I had another one. So a couple other things, like what does the building look like? What does our school look like inside different than in the past? Most of the things are the same, but there are some things that are different. Instead of having desks in clumps or groups, desks are spaced apart as best we can. They're facing the same direction. The reason for that is, again, trying to get as much distancing as we can between students as possible. Now, students will not be at their desks all day without moving from their desks. That would not be possible, even with high school students, but it's certainly not possible with 5-year-olds or 8-year-olds or 9-year-olds. So, but our desks are set up like that to give us the best opportunity to keep that spread down. We have plexiglass shields in each classroom that are portable, that they're real light and teacher can pick them up and use those. That's another way if she needs to work with somebody close to do that a little more safely, is with one of those clear plexiglass shields. And then the student could see the teacher's face that way. And so we have those and we'll utilize those. The inner part of the building, let's see, other differences, I guess, the water fountains will be turned off. However, we still believe, obviously, we need to have our kids hydrated. And so drinking water is extremely important. So we're going to ask parents to send a water bottle in with their student. And then we're going to purchase water bottles also. So if a student doesn't have a water bottle, perhaps forgets it at home, or just doesn't have an extra to bring from home, then we'll provide one. And we have water bottle fillers. We have 3 of them in Creekside right now. And that's thanks to our very generous PTO who bought those for us last year. And those are great. They're chilled water, so it tastes great. And kids can bring their water bottle filled, and that might be the best thing, just so they don't have to all fill it right off the start of the day. But then they can get water throughout the day. And so we're going to provide water. It just won't be via a water fountain right now. Other changes and differences around Creekside, I think there'll be some other small things like some pull-out instruction where students leave the classroom to go to another place to have their instruction. That will look a little different. We'll still be able to offer small group instruction. It just won't be in the exact same format, or maybe pulling students from several different classes together. It might be done on a more individual basis. It might be done on a much smaller group basis. And again, we'll utilize things like face coverings and plexiglass shields to help us stay safe with that. We are hiring additional staff because we know that there will be a harder climb with some students because of being off from school. So we have the federal government through the CARES Act. Creekside is hiring 4 assistants through that, and each of our schools is hiring staff. And so that will give us 4 additional intervention assistants, basically, somebody who can work with our students to bring up their instruction level. In addition to our already robust staff with all of our teachers and special education teachers and instructional folks. So those are some of the changes around the building, and as far as the physical changes. Another change in the building is that we won't be able to have visitors like we have been able to in the past. And this one really hurts, because we love having an open school where we have parents coming in to volunteer. We have study buddies coming in to provide after school instruction. We have convocations. The science guy from Lilly, he comes every year and does this amazing experiment set in front of the gym as a whole school convocation. And I hope to get back to that as soon as it's safe. But for now, we won't have as many, or really very, very few visitors. Now, parents, that doesn't mean that you can't bring your child's lunch to school if they forget it. You still can. We'll just have tables in our front entrance area that you can buzz in and leave it, and then our staff will come out and collect it. And if your child is sick and you need to pick them up from school, we'll be able to probably just walk them to your car. So if you have business in the school, you can still come to us. If there's a form to fill out, buzz in and I can bring it out to you, and you can fill it out and I can take it back in. But we'll try to limit the actual adult traffic within the building environment. So that's a change. Field trips is another change, and that is that we just can't have them right now. A lot of places we would go are actually closed anyway, or not accepting field trips. As soon as we are able to do those again safely, I know that we'll get those going again, because those are a big part of our educational program. So that's a negative for us, but I've heard our teachers already being creative around the district with virtual field trips and seeing what all they can do with technology. And so we're we're excited about those opportunities. Just like I would have not imagined this many video conferences occurring, and now all of a sudden we're all sort of getting used to it. So I guess there are some small opportunities even during this, this terrible time. Thinking about other procedures and things that are changing, the good news is we're still having special area classes. That's art, music, library, PE, and STEM class. STEM uses Project Lead the Way curriculum. Those classes are still occurring just like they have in the past. It's 40 minutes per week, but those teachers are going to the classroom to deliver it instead of having all the students come into those separate classes. Physical education, that is certainly still happening, 40 minutes a week with Mrs. Sherry. And that will be happening outside instead of inside, though. That will help us get to have phys ed, but have it in a safer environment, which will be outdoors. Recess is still happening as usual, 30 minutes a day, and that will just be outdoors, which it always is. But the change will be is that we are going to cordon off the playground a bit and try to keep the classes from intermingling as much. And then we'll rotate by the day to different parts of the playground. So all kids will get to play at different parts of the playground, but that way we can still have that half an hour of recess every single day because we know kids need that. They'll be just doing hand sanitizer on their way out of the building and their way back in the building. And of course, it's right before lunch, so they'll be washing their hands and going to the bathroom and all that. Flip that order. They'll be going to the bathroom and then washing their hands. And lunch, but since I mentioned that, we're going to still have lunch, obviously, at school. The lunches will look different physically. They still meet the same nutrition standards that we're required to meet, but there'll be more prepackaged materials for now. Unfortunately, our salad bar will not be with us until this thing is over. Now, we're going to still have plenty of fresh fruits and fresh vegetables. The kids just won't be able to select them off the bar. That was too many touch points, too many kids together. So the salad bar will be closed until we can reopen it again when things are safer. So, but lunch will be in the cafeteria and in the gym is the plan at this moment. Now, that could still change, but I think we can get kids spaced out enough in those two rooms. The cafeteria, we normally have all 5 classes in there per grade level at a time. And I think we might just do 2 classes, spread them out much further. And then in the gym, have 3 classes. It's a much larger room. So that's the plan right now for lunch. But that's one of those things that's flexible, and we'll find the best way to deliver that. Breakfast is actually very much the same as it always has been at Creekside. It's optional. All students can have breakfast, but you don't have to. And you'll just get that and have it in the classroom. I think we may deliver it to the classroom instead of having students pick it up themselves, but we'll have that in the room, and that's not really a change for Creekside. Let's see, looking down my list, I've touched on small group instruction already. Special education instruction will not change as far as kids with special needs, kids that have IEPs. Their IEPs have not changed. Only way we change those is if we have a, good question. I'll get to that in just a moment about at-home learning. Our IEPs haven't changed unless we had a case conference to change those. We will still have our annual case conferences for our IEP and our changes. We do those every year. And those will probably be over Google Meet instead of in person like we normally like to have them. But our actual IEP, special education instruction, speech and language, physical therapy, occupational therapy, those are all the same. Those have not changed. Let me get to these chats. Let's see. Okay, question about at-home learning option, grace period. Yeah, and that's a good question. So the answer to that is on both counts, yes. There will be a process forthcoming. I really should let Dr. Worland talk about this. She's the go-to and guru on this. So before I say something that's not right, Dr. Worland, why don't you talk about the virtual option?
Yes, there will be a virtual option. And we are hoping to have more information out about that. We talked a little bit about it at the board meeting, and then there is some mention of it in the reentry plans that are posted online, but there are not a lot of details. And we really needed all of you who participated in this survey to help us make some of those decisions. So if some of you on here submitted that data, we actually had over 61% of the community participate. I want to thank you for that, because that's what we needed to make some decisions about design. And there are actually a lot of districts that were trying that decision-making model. So thank you for that. We are going to offer virtual options. Our K through 6 options will all be taught by Franklin Community Schools teachers. So some of those details will come out, I hope tomorrow, it may be Monday. What we're going to ask then that families do once you have those additional details is tell us through a registration process if you are starting the year virtually. There is a grace period. You will have the time that we start on August 5th until the end of the month. I think that date is August 28th. To make that decision, that's the decision point. So if you start virtual and you think, you know what, this is not working for me, for my child, we need to go back to on-site, you can do that at that point in August. If you're on site and you think, this is not working, or your family situation has changed, that's the time when you make that decision. We will then ask you remain in that environment until the close of this semester, and then we'll see what second semester brings. We don't, and that's something I wanted to say earlier, and Mark, you may have said this. This is an ever-changing, ever-evolving situation, and I think it's important that everybody understand that we're trying to be nimble and adapt. Families, our students, and they will. Students are very, they're responsive and they flow with us. Mark's mentioned that a couple of times. So I think sometimes that the adults in the environment roll with things and are flexible, our students tend to follow that lead. So it is possible that we will hear different advice from the Johnson County Health Department, which is flowing out of the state. I actually heard the governor and Dr. Box talk yesterday, and many of the things that Dr. Box shared with regards to the state data and county data supports what's in our plan at this point. And I think it's important that everybody understand we're not medical professionals, we're educators. And so we are acting in some cases with regards to how we do busing, as Mr. Sewell talked about, or how we manage our lunchtime or what's happening in our classrooms. That's guidance that we're being given and asked to make work in the environment that we have. So yes, in short, I'm sorry, I got derailed, didn't I? We will have a virtual option. There will be a grace period, and more information, more details really, which many of you have asked for, will be coming out hopefully tomorrow, or it may be on Monday.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Worland. So think about that. You'll have the opportunity to formally say that you want that option. And of course, you have the opportunity always to ask lots of questions before you say that. And then there will be that grace period flowing either way, either from in-person to virtual or virtual to in-person. You'll have some weeks there as the year is getting started to make that decision. But then after that point, we do want students to stay in whatever option they're in, because going back and forth would just be detrimental to the student. So there will be a grace period, and then you can choose the option that's best for you. Sarah asked about remote learning or the virtual option. How would they get their supplies? What will that look like? Chromebooks, yeah. I mean, we will make sure that we set up a pickup time for all your supplies, Chromebooks, books, everything that your student otherwise would have received, you'll receive. And then if it's a book that's a school-owned book that you're just basically renting for you'll return that at the end of the year or the semester. But you'll have all of those supplies, including obviously a Chromebook, so that your child can use that online learning. Mentioning Chromebooks real quick before I get to the next question, we do have Chromebooks for all students now. So before it was second grade on up. Now we have it in kindergarten and first grade also. And the kindergarten and first grade Chromebooks are touchscreens, which we think will benefit our youngest learners. And we will have cases for them as well, so they will be kept safer. The kids will actually bring those to and from school each day, and we'll ask that you get them charged at night. And then we know that won't always happen. So we'll have chargers at school in case a couple students don't have that and their Chromebook's dead and the teacher wants to use them. So, and obviously early on in this year, we will be working with students on Chromebook skills, teaching them how to log in, teaching them all the skills they need to use Google Classroom, and being comfortable, because we don't know what the future will bring, but we want to be prepared in any case. A question was from Sarah also about families who chose remote learning. How will you get library books back to us? And that's a good question, really on all supplies to you from us and us to you. So anything that you have that's ours, library books or something else, we'll get those back when your child returns to school. If your child is not returning to school, you can bring those however you'd like. You can bring them by and leave them at our door. We'll have those tables in our vestibule. You can always just leave them there and we'll collect them and get them checked in. Same thing for Chromebooks. Let's say you have a Chromebook and you don't need it anymore. Maybe you moved out of the district or are choosing an option that's not Franklin Schools. You can just bring that back in the same fashion. And if you have any issues with that, just give us a call. Our office is reopened on July 20th and we'll be able to field calls at that point, all the time very easily. Another question I get asked a lot is school supplies from last year. So all the things that were left here after when we left, not knowing that we would not come back this school year. So those are all right now individually bagged, and we will get those back to you at back to school night and at the first day of school. And anybody that we miss through that process, we'll get them to you, whether we call you up, whether we mail them to you. If you move schools, we'll send them to the other schools so you can have those items. But we'll find you and get those back. If you bought a yearbook or spring pictures or just anything else that we just have, we'll make sure you get those. But right now we are doing that at back to school night on August 3rd and then August 5th, the first day. Likewise, if your child was a fourth grader last year and now going to be a fifth grader, Custer Baker will have those items for your child. So we'll work with them on that distribution. Let's see. In Creekside, one of our traditions in the past was for you to bring all of your child's back to school materials at Meet the Teacher night so they wouldn't have to carry all that the first day of school. I don't think right now we'll be able to do that because our teachers then would be hauling in hundreds of pounds of materials into the building, and that's just too much for them to do. So we'll ask for your child to bring those to school, but I'll say this again, we do not need to have all those things on day one. So don't overburden your child physically. Maybe send one or two items on their school supply list or just whatever fits easily in the book bag, and you can take several days to send those things in. Likewise, if you don't have items, don't worry about it. Some of the items on the school supply list you may not be able to find. And I said this in the email I sent probably a month ago about this, but don't go all over creation looking for Clorox wipes. If you don't see them, you don't see them. Don't worry about it. We have our own supplies. It's just teachers have always asked for those types of things, particularly cold and flu season. We've always used them a lot. And so if you have it, send in, great. If you don't, it's okay. And as always, we have our school supply fast track where folks can get school supplies, but we have plenty extras here too. So if you're short anything, don't worry about it. We have plenty of school supplies for your child. Sarah asked about NWEA testing. Yes, we're going to do NWEA testing. We do that 3 times a year, beginning of school in August, and then we do it in December at the middle of the year, and we do it in May, which is the one we missed this past school year. But we are going to give that test in reading and math because we want to see exactly where our students are. We know where they were in December of 2019, but we need to find out where they are in August of 2020. So we'll do that right off the bat. It's a long window, Sarah. So if you somehow miss it, so let's say you start school a week or 2 late or whatever, we do testing that entire window. And so we'll pick your child up along the way. We keep very good track of that because we want that data, because we want to be able to track growth and see where our students are. So we are going to do that as the year gets started. Karen asked a question about drop off and picked up. Good question, Karen. So in the past, our car rider lines have started as early. It's changed over the years as our car rider lines have grown in length. We've had to add extra time. I anticipate this year them starting between 7:15 and 7:20. I'd say probably closer to 7:15. And if that's not early enough, we'll start them earlier. And then, as I said earlier, if anybody's late because of our lines, the bell rings at 7:40. We want all the kids at school at 7:40. But we also understand if the line's too long or whatever, then your child's not tardy if it's because of our car rider line. And, you know, other days, like if it's icy or something, we add a nice buffer in there. We want to extend as much grace as we can while still protecting the idea that we need your child at school so they don't miss, you know, half their reading block first thing in the morning. And then pickup time at 2:20, our school day ends. So it's 2:20, but that car rider goes from about 2:20, car rider line, I'm sorry. Both of them run from 2:20 until sometimes 2:40, 2:45. And then in the past, if there are students left over, so, you know, somebody's running late, the students would come to the office. I would imagine that will still happen. And then when you arrive, you'll just use the buzzer and we'll just walk your child out to you if you happen to be running late someday. Yeah, Sarah, yes, we do anticipate all students taking NWEA. And Sarah, we just got information from NWEA recently that they offer a remote option. I don't know for sure how we'll handle that just yet, but we definitely will be giving NWEA to all of our students, both virtual and on site in person. And that's because we need to, and I know the parents want it too. They want to see how their child's progress is going. Thanks, Sarah, for your question. Other questions, keep jumping in there. Again, you can unmute and just ask it, or again, you're more than welcome to type it. One thing I haven't talked about yet is our clinic and our school nurse. Obviously, Mrs. Christoph is here all the time, and she's an excellent school nurse, and we've had her for a number of years, and she'll be our school nurse again. The district is hiring also additional clinic assistants to help our nurses out with what we think will be an increased, you know, workload of students. And even if not, our clinics are already hopping places anyway with kids who maybe feel sick or things like that. So we have Mrs. Christoph, and she'll be following our procedures if students are ill, taking temperatures, that sort of thing. One thing that we will ask, and we're going to publicize this more, but we'll ask that every day that our staff, everybody who works in Franklin schools, and parents of your students go through a bit of a checklist every day and make sure you're healthy, make sure your child's healthy. One of the best things that we can do if we're sick is we stay home. And of course, we've preached that for years, particularly during cold and flu season. And so we'll ask that again, is that we're not saying you have to take your child's temperature every day. That's up to you as a parent, but you can probably tell when your child's sick. It's one of those things a lot of times you can just see. Please monitor that and monitor your own health too. I mean, we should all do that. And heaven forbid if I wake up some morning and I'm sick, you know, in the past I might have thought, oh, I don't really have a fever, I'm going to soldier on through this thing. Well, in this climate, we really can't do that. We have to be responsible. So go through that with your child also. But Mrs. Christoph is wonderful, and she will work with you on any kind of issues that we have. I've mentioned it already about volunteers. Our front office will be more close to in-person traffic as far as parents coming in and out. But I still think we can probably carry out every duty that we have in the past. And I want to be responsive to parents, so you can always still call us. One of my pride points at Creekside is we do not have an automated message. And it's press 1 if you want this, press 2 if you want that, unless you call us after hours. But if the office is open, you will get an answer unless we're just absolutely slammed. And Kathy and Jamie answer our phones. But then Mrs. Christoph jumps in there and grabs it, or if I can get up there fast enough, I grab it if things are too busy. So you'll get a human right away, and you can always call us with any questions or issues, and we can work through that. So continue to do that. And of course, other communication points that we use Facebook, we use Twitter, like us and follow us. And then you can message us via Facebook. I've never had someone message us via Twitter yet. I guess you can do that. But Facebook, I get messages all the time, and I'm the one that responds to those. So feel free to send those. And then also you can always email me or email your child's teacher. So those are all ways to reach out to us, and we'll continue to reach out to you with as much proactive information as we can. Just some other small things, I think, but they're going to be important for us to stay as safe as we can. Things like hallway transitions. We'll be having certain hallways be one way so that way we don't have as much cross traffic of multiple classes crossing each other throughout the day. We'll manage that. Bathroom breaks, we'll manage it, so just one class at a time. And then we will be clean. We already clean the bathrooms a lot during the day. Mr. Flanagan and Mrs. Tomomichael are outstanding at that, but they will redouble their efforts on surfaces and any touch points. They'll be wiping down with stuff that kills, but is still safe to the touch. And we've got some new fluids on that. So we'll be doing that. Hygiene, like hand washing and sanitizer. We do that. We've already preached that for years, but we're going to have all new hand sanitizing stations throughout our building as you enter each point of the building and also in our classrooms. So kids will be able to hand sanitize and really will be asked to do that constantly. Yeah, I think that's my basic item. So definitely ask some questions, or anyone else, Dr. Worland, Mr. Sewell, Mrs. Limbach, if I missed something, I'm quite certain I did, but jump in there and see what else we need to talk about tonight. Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
Dr. Harden, we are trying to encourage everyone to look at the postings that are online. We are still seeking CARES Act assistance. I know Mrs. Martin is also hiring clinic assistants. I think she has a good list there, but we just encourage family members and others to look for those opportunities.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, Franklin Community Schools is hiring. So if you'd like to join us, franklinschools.org, and apply online. You can send me an email or any principal you're interested in working with. Send an email and we can go from there. All right. Well, I'll watch the chat bar for the next few moments here and just make sure that anybody else doesn't have anything to ask. If you're halfway through typing a huge question, hit enter and I'll see half of it and you can finish it while I'm talking. I don't want you to get cut off here and miss it. Silence when I'm done. So please feel free to ask any further questions at all. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Travis. Sarah, are you asking? I can't tell if you are. Oh, okay. That's okay. So you can unmute. It's like Control D, but no, that's all right. Didn't mean to put you on the spot. Yeah, been there. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to end the recording here in just a moment. And again, you can always email me or Facebook message with questions. I know there's more that'll come up, so feel free to do that. We are excited for August 5th. I mean, I wish it I wish it was tomorrow, although we have a lot to do before then, but I do wish it was tomorrow. The first day of school is my favorite day of the year. I mean, I absolutely adore that first day. It's just exciting. So I can't wait. And hopefully you're getting excited. Hopefully your child's getting excited. We'll do what we can to pump them up leading up to it. And, you know, at Creekside, we are family. That's our motto. And that's what we'll continue to live by as we try to offer great education to everyone. So have a great evening. Thank you again for joining. And I will hopefully see all of you soon.